This is the download recap from Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. The download is brought to you by Podscribe. You can find out more at podscribe.com. This week, the Podscape winter deadline is tonight. Clawing their way to ownership, why some podcasters are building products instead of reading ads. How loyal is your podcast audience? Podcast predictions for 2026 from 22 industry experts. Eventbrite announces Listener.com partnership. And IAB Australia 2026 event, audio advertising, State of the Nation survey. Let's get started. That's right, folks. It's almost time. Twice a year, Magellan AI and Sounds Profitable team up to continue the living document that is the Podscape. It's a bird's eye view of the industry. The Podscape infographic sorts companies in the business of podcasting into various districts representing what products and services they provide. These biannual updates serve to both add new companies as well as update existing ones. For example, if you've had a change of direction, a new logo, new acquisitions, we want to hear about all of it. Participation is free and highly encouraged. You can fill out the official form linked in today's show notes, but you got to get it done by end of today, Friday, November 21st, for your submission to be included in the winter update scheduled to post early next year. Otherwise, you'll be in line for the summer update. At a recent Bloomberg Business of Podcasting Summit, Shot Studios co-founder John Shahidi explained the reasoning behind launching the Happy Dad Seltzer brand. Full Send podcast audience is 85% male, hard seltzers are popular, but college-age dudes perceive White Claw as effeminate. Happy Dad serves as an example of podcast monetization that builds equity in one's own business. When a Full Send listener tries Happy Dad and likes it, they've just reinforced their connection with the podcast, a podcast which itself is driving affinity for the Happy Dad brand. Here's a quote from Tom Webster, quote, "Of course, most podcasters cannot launch a beverage company. The capital requirements alone would eliminate the vast majority of creators. Happy Dad works because Nelk Boys and Full Send have massive scale, millions of listeners and viewers who will actually buy enough product to justify manufacturing, distribution, and retail relationships. But the principle isn't limited to beverages or massive audiences. It's about understanding your audience well enough to create something they actually want and need, then using your podcast as a highly efficient, targeted marketing channel for that thing." End quote. While this is not without risk, see influencers who tried to evolve past content that created their makeup line or fashion brand in the first place, it does leverage a creator's greatest tool, understanding their audience, building a brand that fits an audience, and then using that podcast they already love to tell them about that brand. And that's got a lot of power. Every podcast has an average lifetime value score that can be used to track audience loyalty, a metric measured by tracking the average number of distinct calendar days an audience member spends on the show, effectively condensing the entire audience's listening history into a single number tracked, a typifying average listener over time. While there is no one universal good number for a podcast lifetime value score, there are shows that tend to generate higher ones than others. For example, daily podcasts tend to have more regular listeners returning regularly than weekly uploads. Shows with sizable back catalogs that both old fans and new listeners can burn through also tend to score better. A metric that can be used to determine if an audience is actively growing or possibly undergoing churn even as net new subscribers keep coming in. Inversely, if average lifetime value is increasing but overall audience side is trending downwards, the show could be accidentally super serving a declining core audience and putting off the rest of the fan base. A plus side to the average lifetime value is one can calculate it with freely available data. One needs both an all-time deduplicated number of unique audience members using user accounts or device IDs, and a daily resolution unique audience member count. both of which are available from Apple Podcast Connect and Spotify for podcasters. To speed along the process, Bumper has built the score into the loyalty section of the Bumper dashboard. As is tradition for Podcast Perspectives around this time of year, we have a special episode from them bringing together 22 former guests to look forward to 2026 as well as back as where we come in 2025. For example, here's our very own Brian Barletta's section. Quote, "There's more opportunity for small teams than in any other industry I've seen. At the same time, inbound work and easy projects have kind of dried up. While the word podcast may be used for more than we originally defined it for, at its core, it still means audio forward, creator owned, and on demand. Podcasting is allowing us to revisit ideas creators and influencers have tried before that have failed and finding greater success this time around. I really believe that podcasting's strength lies in the comfort of repeating our value for the 17th time with the enthusiasm of it being the first time." End quote. Lower Street's Harry Morton is hopeful for what 2026 has to bring, citing the IAB announcement of podcasting revenue hitting $3 billion as proof brands continue to invest in podcasting, something that's a net positive for the industry at large. Jessica Cordova-Kramer of Lemonada Media is excited for community building in the new year. Audiences want to hang out with other people who love the same shows, something Lemonada is aiming to address. Event organizing platform Eventbrite has partnered with analytics platform Listener.com to bring event data to the same dashboard as podcasting statistics. With the integration, podcasters can see event, ticketing, and revenue data from their Eventbrite events in Listener's dashboard via an app that's currently available for free in the Eventbrite app marketplace. With a combination of audience analytics and IRL event performance metrics, podcasters can make even more informed judgment calls on where their fan base is and where it's strongest when planning future events. The latest weekly update from IAB Australia comes with dates and registration links for the first events of 2026. IAB Australia Audio Summit 2026 will take place in both Sydney and Melbourne in early March on the 3rd and 4th, respectively. Sounds profitable. We'll be in attendance, by the way. Also, the survey for the IAB Australia Audio Advertising State of the Nation is now live, soliciting responses about experience and plans with digital streaming audio and podcast advertising. Respondents are entered to win a giveaway for a 250 AUD gift voucher and are also eligible for a free ticket to either Audio Summit in March. Finally, it's time for quick hits. These are stories I've covered from throughout the week that didn't quite make full story coverage here today in the recap, but are still worth including in your weekend reading. First up, RSS.com has announced Free Local and Niche, a new posting plan built for podcasters, focusing on community-driven and highly specialized topics. The plan offers unlimited episodes, unlimited audio, and a free podcast website, as well as a slate of other features needed to get a locally focused or niche podcast off the ground with no investment. Australia's industry body for commercial audio and radio has rolled out the CRA Audio ID. This unified cross-network identity solution enables the ability for a single listener to be identified with the same ID number across radio stations and podcasts consumed from multiple different companies across Australian media. Apple Podcasts has debuted their top shows for 2025. These lists include individual countries, as usual, and as usual, Pod News has compiled all of those different country lists into one handy thing that I'm linking today. Pave Studios has teamed up with Catherine Nicolai for the first ever Nothing Much Happens live virtual event. This event is designed to fully leverage the podcast bedtime routine premise for at-home enjoyment, including, but not limited to, printable coloring pages with the PDF of your ticket. And finally, The Hollywood Reporter and Spotify have published the first video podcast roundtable, an hour-long video bringing together nominees for the 2026 Golden Globe for Best Podcast. That was the download recap brought to you by Sounds Profitable. I know I went through today's stories fast, so be sure to check out the links to everything I've talked about right in your podcast listening app with the handy dandy link. Or you can go to the front page of soundsprofitable.com and sign up for the newsletter version and get all future episodes delivered straight to your email inbox. For Sounds Profitable, I'm Gavin Gaddis. Our producers are myself, Tom Webster, and Brian Barletta. And as usual, special thanks to you for sticking with me as I brought you all the top stories from this week in the business of podcasting. Robot.
Download complete.